The Abyss came out in '89. A few years later, I was just sitting around, in between movies. I'd done Terminator 2, looking for kind of what to do next. I was developing a thing called True Lies, and I just happened upon a tape of A Night to Remember, and I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, back in the '60s. And so I popped it in, I sat one afternoon, and I just watched A Night to Remember, and the pieces just fell into place. Modern deep-sea robotics, submersibles, the wreck of Titanic, this story, kind of beautifully reproduced in color the way we could do it now. It was a black and white film, very well made in its time, 1961, I believe. And I thought, I've got to do this, but what's my hook? And then it popped into my head, it's a love story. I immediately started to do a lot of research about Titanic, and one of the best reference points at the time was a beautiful book called The History of Titanic that was done by Ken Marshall and Don Lynch. Don Lynch was the historian. Ken Marshall is the preeminent artist who has painted, really all the most memorable paintings of Titanic and Titanic sinking, but also Titanic in all her beauty, sailing across the ocean and so on. If you open that book up to the middle, there's a double truck. The book is quite large, so this is a painting that is about that wide if you open the book. And it's Titanic in the middle stages of its sinking, beautifully lit, lifeboats leaving, rockets going off, illuminating the night sky. It's somber, it's sad, it's beautiful, it's spectacular. I walked into Peter Chernon's office and, he said, well, what do you got? And I said, I opened that book to that painting, I turned it around, I put it in front of him, and I said, Romeo and Juliet on that. And he stared at the painting for a little while. He said, yeah, let's do it. I have set pieces that I want to see visually. And those kind of exist in a little pile, but not necessarily in any kind of order, and I don't know how to get there. And then I start working forward from character. What's their backstory? What do they care about? How do they meet? What's intriguing about each other, and so on. I write forward, and then I try to weave it through those bits of visual backdrop that I wanted to see, and it all fell into place fairly well. I really felt that it was a mission and a responsibility to get it right, to do as well as we could, almost as if we could somehow look back through a time window or go back in time and see what was really happening. So we spent a lot of time on the kind of forensic analysis, to kind of figure out what was happening during the flooding and the breakup of the ship, because it was kind of glossed over in Night to Remember. Night to Remember was very accurate about the people. Turned out to be not very accurate about the actual sinking of the ship. I wanted that beautiful lambent light that you get late in the day during magic hour in an English summer, that sort of thing, except I wanted it at sea. Well, how the hell are you going to do that? Well, we talked about literally going to the shipyard in Gdansk and having them build Titanic for us. Maybe not the whole thing, maybe not an actual replica of the ship, but build the upper decks, and maybe we talked about putting them onto some kind of a container ship or something like that and sailing around in the Baltic in the late summer, to get that lighting, to get that look. We talked about all different ways to skin the cat. Ultimately, we came up with this crazy idea of building a studio just across the border in Mexico, in Ensenada, and that way we could have access to all the craftspeople in Mexico City. We could build our sets down there. We could assemble them there right across the border. We could bring our keys and our actors down from LA. It wouldn't require plane flights. We'd just drive. I could drive back and forth to my house in Malibu, which I did. It's kind of a crazy idea, but it worked beautifully. The funny thing is there's no formula, but there is a commonality between Titanic and Avatar, and even now The Way of Water, which is that when people have a powerful emotional experience in a theater, they want to share it. It's not so much that they want to go back themselves. I think that's a factor. They want to just see it again, take it all in, reproduce that feeling. But I think it's more like they want to become the gatekeeper of that experience for somebody else that they care about. Friends or, a loved one, parent, child, whatever it is. So you've got these relationships that are intergenerational, they're among friends, they're dates, all that sort of thing. But it was about the sharing of the experience. I think that's what a lot of the I think that's what a lot of the repeat viewing was really about. Wanting to gift that experience to someone else.